Welcome to the Audio Hotline. Today I'll be doing a review of the Deity VO-7U. Yeah, Deity has a dynamic microphone that's meant for podcasting and streaming. I was never really anticipating that Deity would come out with a microphone like this. Truthfully, I was surprised, slightly appalled, also interested, but mostly just extremely excited to eventually be able to try it out. It does seem like the USB dynamic podcast streaming microphone market is becoming a little saturated, but the reason that I was excited about trying the VO-7U is just the fact that I love Deity. They make really great products, really great sounding microphones, but quite honestly, their customer service and just their employees in general are just a delight. They're just so nice and accommodating and everything. They're amazing. But I love supporting companies that have great customer service and actually appreciate their customers. I had a recent experience with Canon cameras. It was just a total joke. Pretty much everyone that I talked to from there was just completely condescending. No one could or would tell me what was wrong with my camera. They were just like, give us your money now and we'll maybe fix it. It was awful, but it made me appreciate places that have great customer service like Sweetwater and Deity. So good job, Deity. Just know that your hard work is definitely appreciated. And speaking of Deity as a company, I do just want to disclaim really quick that Deity did in fact send me this microphone. They sent it to me so I could do an unbiased review. I'm not obligated to say anything good about it or to say anything specific about it. But thank you, Deity, for sending this microphone over. But a couple things really quick. I will be doing a blind comparison later in this video. I'll put the microphones up on the screen that I'll be comparing the Deity to. Also, I am recording this into my MacBook Pro going into Adobe Audition. Right now I have the microphone gain set at about 52% because I actually did want to enable the analog limiter that is in this microphone. It said that the hardware analog limiter kicks in after 50% gain. So that's how I'm recording this right now. If you do decide to get the Deity VO-7U, it actually does come in two different colors. Technically two different shades, I guess. There's a white microphone that does actually come with a white stand also. Then there is the black edition that comes with the black stand. In addition from you being able to choose from a black and white edition, also you can choose from essentially two different kits. The podcast kit is the one that they sent me, so that's what you'll see today. But the podcast kit will come in at $200 regardless of it being the white or black edition. And then the standard kit will come in at $169. And the only difference is that instead of a boom arm, you are getting a tabletop tripod. The tripod looks nice and everything, but some people definitely are going to prefer the boom arm. And also in the standard kit, you do not get the foam windscreen. Now let's go ahead and get into some more specifics. Let's go ahead and talk about what comes with the Deity VO-7U in its podcast kit. If you decide to purchase the Deity VO-7U podcast kit, it will come with a microphone boom arm stand. You will connect that boom arm to a desk clamp, and that desk clamp actually has a headphone holder built into it. This will come with one USB-C to USB-C cable, and also a USB Type-A to USB-C cable. This will also come with some Deity branded cable ties. It'll come with a warranty card and some documentation, and also the microphone itself, the Deity VO-7U. This podcast kit is really nice in the sense that it comes with pretty much everything you would need to start recording aside from a computer and some software. And I do want to say that I absolutely love the fact that they included a USB-C to USB-C cable and a USB Type-A to USB-C cable. Because if you have a computer that just uses USB-C, it's so annoying to have to try to remember to bring an adapter everywhere you go. So it's fantastic that it has both. I feel like I'm a little bit weird. You probably already knew that, but what I meant is that I'm weird when it comes to boom arms. Like, I'm not the biggest fan of them usually. There are a couple that I like, but I tend to just prefer a good old microphone stand on the ground, on the solid ground. But this Deity boom arm, considering the price point that this microphone and whole kit is at, I'm actually a little bit surprised by the quality. I think that it's actually pretty good. It's definitely not the most sturdy or best boom arm of all time, but I actually do like the way that it functions. But I feel like the microphone build is good. The mount, the dials, everything, it feels good. It definitely feels a little bit better than it should considering everything you're getting and at the price that you're getting it at. But now that we've talked about the accessories and the build quality, let's go ahead and talk about some of the features that you can find on the Deity VO-7U. Now, one of the coolest features of the VO-7U is the fact that the front of the grill on this microphone is actually detachable. The reason that is so nice is that you can detach it and clean it, especially if other people are going to be using your microphone, or if you just tend to spit a lot. On the top part of this microphone, you will find the mute button. Underneath the mute button and around the entire microphone, there is an LED ring. The LED ring will turn red if you do mute this microphone. But speaking of the LED ring, you actually do get 12 presets of RGB colors and effects that you can switch between by short pressing the mic gain knob. And if you want to turn off or on the LED ring, you can long press the mic gain knob. And like I just mentioned already, this microphone does have a microphone gain knob. On the opposite side of the microphone from the gain knob, you will have a headphone volume control. Now, if you press that headphone volume dial in, it will actually mute your headphones. However, it does not mute the actual microphone. Now, on the bottom of this microphone is where you will find your USB-C port, as well as your headphone output. And interestingly enough, this microphone's mount actually has a 3/8 threading, as well as a 5/8 threading. Now, I think that this microphone does have a lot of really cool features, and when I did review the FiFine K658, I kind of stated that I'm not absolutely crazy about the LED rings. I'm sure that some people like it. I was actually just happy it had a white setting like this. I think that looks cool. And I will say, some of the presets that this does come with are actually pretty cool looking. But speaking of that FiFine microphone, I will definitely have that be in the comparison later in this video. You know I gotta do that, boo. My shirt keeps falling down and I noticed that you can see my cat puncture. My little baby punctured my skin. But I love that this is a USB-C. I love that it has latency-free monitoring. I'm a big fan of the fact that it has a gain knob and a headphone knob. And it's really cool that they have the dual functionality with the dials that you can also press them in and get even more features out of them that way. And also the mute button doesn't have a click to it, but it's like oddly satisfying to press. Now, one thing I did notice that was a little bit weird is when you press the mute button, it actually mutes your headphones also. But like I told you during the features, if you do press in the headphone volume control, it mutes your headphones. So it's kind of weird that the mute button mutes both, but the headphone one only mutes the headphones. I kind of wish that the mute button didn't mute the headphones at all. Just let me make that decision with the button you already provided, you know? But aside from that little weird mute button, headphone mute issue, I think that everything else is really solid when it comes to the features. But now that we've gone through the basics, the accessories, and the features, now let's go ahead and nerd out and talk about some specs. The Deity VO-7U is a dynamic microphone with a frequency response of 20 Hz to 20 kHz and a supercardioid polar pattern. This has a max bitrate of 24-bit and a max sample rate of 48 kHz. This has a max SPL of 135 decibels, a signal-to-noise ratio of 84 decibels, an impedance of 600 ohms, a built-in pop filter, and this is compatible with Windows, Mac OS, Chrome OS, Android, iPad OS, and Linux. Now we've gotten all the details, all the fluff out of the way. Now let's go ahead and start testing this microphone out. I'm going to put this right side up while I do this. If you get really close to this microphone and test the proximity, here's how it's going to sound. Now, one thing I want to do is turn the volume down to 40% while I'm doing the proximity effect. That way that analog limiter is no longer enabled, and we'll see if that affects the sound in any different way, and I'll just boost it in post. Now here is the microphone at 40% with the proximity effect. Now I've went and bumped it down to 20%, and I'm just boosting this in post, and here's how that sounds. Now I'm at 100%, and it doesn't say that I'm actually clipping on my meter. Now I'm back at about the 55% that I was at before. Real quick warning, it's going to be loud. Let's do some plosives. Plosive tests with some pickled peanuts. Plosive pickled peanuts. Pickled peanuts. Plosive tests with some pickled peanuts. Plosive pickled peanuts. Pickled peanuts. Now I have the microphone a little bit to the side, not directly at my mouth hole. And here's a plosive test with some pickled peanuts. Pickled peanuts. Now if I was typing on some MX Cherry Blues really hard behind this microphone, here's how it rejects that sound. Now we're going to take the polar pattern test one step further with a white noise test. It's honestly getting a little bit creepy at this point. Every single time Blue, my kitty, hears that white noise test, he knows I'm about to pick him up and hold him, so we can do a kitty purr test. He's literally right by my feet. It's amazing. I could call his name all day. He doesn't give a shit. Just play that white noise. He comes a running. Who's my baby boy? You're being a tool. And just a real quick test here is if I press the mute button, if it has a pop or not. Here we go. Now I'm unmuted. Here's how the microphone sounds about 3 inches from my mouth. Now about 6 inches from my mouth. And now this is out of the camera shot, and this is about 2 feet away. And now if you mistakenly bought the wrong Deity mic, here's how it sounds outside of the frame, right above my head, like a shotgun microphone would be used. Now I have the microphone back at 55%, and here is just a real quick post-processing test, where I just have a high-pass filter, some compression, and possibly some limiting. And here is the sound of that exact same post-processing, but with the foam windscreen on the microphone. Right now I'm in a completely untreated room, and I'm actually recording into my iPhone. Deity says the VO-7U is compatible with iPad OS. It doesn't technically say iOS, and without this little adapter, you gotta love that name though. Without this though, I wasn't able to get it connected up. Man, there's a lot of reflections in this room. You can barely see that. But up here at the top, you can see it does say Deity VO-7U. So it does actually recognize the microphone, and I'll include this dongle adapter down in the description of this video. When it says it's compatible with the iPad OS, I'm assuming that that's through the USB-C to USB-C cable. The iPad Pro have a USB-C connector rather than a Lightning connector like my phone has or my old iPad. And it does say it is Android compatible, but sadly I just don't have an Android phone. I've actually been working on getting an old one just so I can do these tests. So as per usual, this is somewhat of an iPhone/untreated room test. Right now I currently have the microphone at about 35%, and I'll boost it in post to kind of match the other levels. But I've just been wanting to go over and under that 50%, where 50% enables that analog limiter. I've just wanted to see how certain situations sound, if it affects the tone at all or anything like that. So now I'm back up to where I have been a majority of the video, where it's been about 55%, and here's how that sounds in an untreated room with the analog limiter enabled. And now we're back to about 35-40% on the microphone with no foam windscreen in this untreated room. Once again, this is 55% untreated room, but with no foam windscreen on. And that is one thing that Deity has said, is that this is supposed to be like the ultimate bedroom podcast recording microphone. So we'll see how it rejects the sound and everything, and if it sounds good in this very untreated room, it'll probably sound good in a majority of bedrooms, because this room is quite reverberant. Definitely more of your worst case scenario. Well, now that we've tested the iPhone compatibility, which technically it doesn't have, but we made it work, and we did a little bit of an untreated room test, now let's go ahead and move on. But before we move on, just know that there was an adorable black kitty right there the whole time. Now let's go ahead and finish this testing section off with a real quick guitar test. I'll do one take at about 30% under that analog limiter, then I'll do one above 50 and just match those volumes in post. Now that we've gotten all the testing out of the way, let's go ahead and jump into the blind comparison. Now before we get into this comparison, I'm just going to do a real quick palate cleanser microphone. This is really dumb that I'm using this microphone, but I figured that some people might complain if I don't. Since it seems like most people want to find an alternative to using the Shure SM7B, most people when I make a video like this get mad when I don't include it in the comparison or at all. So here it is. The Shure SM7B is the palate cleanser microphone for the blind comparison coming up. But actually right now I'm using this Shure SM7B into an $80 audio interface with no cloud lifter or anything. It's nearly maxed out on gain, but here's the sound of that. But let's check out some other microphones that aren't $400. Get ready for some repetitive phrases. Currently you are listening to microphone A in this blind comparison. Currently you are listening to microphone B in this blind comparison. Currently, you are listening to microphone C in this blind comparison. Currently, you are listening to microphone D in this blind comparison. Currently, you are listening to microphone E in this blind comparison. Currently, you are listening to microphone F in this blind comparison. Once again, this is microphone B, and this is how it sounds. Once again, this is microphone D, and this is how it sounds. Once again, this is microphone F, and this is how it sounds. Once again, this is microphone A, and this is how it sounds. Once again, this is microphone C, and this is how it sounds. Once again, this is microphone E, and this is how it sounds. Microphone A here, A as in Amanda, always an arrogant asshole. Microphone D here, D as in double duty dangler. Microphone B here, B as in big, bootyful bear tooth. Microphone E here, E as in everyone eagerly earned earwax. Microphone F here, F as in frame Freddy for frying funfetti. Microphone C here, C as in cautiously cuddling crazy crocodiles. One last time, here is the sound of the Amanda, always an arrogant asshole microphone. Microphone A. One last time, here is the sound of the big bootyful bear tooth microphone. Microphone B. One last time, here is the sound of cautiously cuddling crazy crocodiles microphone. Microphone C. One last time, here is the sound of the double duty dangler microphone. Microphone D. One last time, here is the sound of the everyone eagerly earned earwax microphone. Microphone E. One last time, here is the sound of the frame Freddy for frying funfetti microphone. Microphone F. Now we've went through that whole comparison. I'm back on the palate cleanser microphone, the Shure SM7B, but now let's go ahead and talk about the results of the blind comparison. Microphone A was the FiFine K658, and this microphone currently goes for around $150. Microphone B was the SV7, which is exclusively an XLR microphone, so I was using an audio interface. I was actually using the very inexpensive AudioBox GO by Presonus. This combination equals out to be about $180, so it's right in the price range of the stuff that we're comparing. Microphone C was the Samson Q9U, which usually goes for $200. Currently it's on sale for $150, but I'm not sure how long that's going to stay that way. While I was using the Q9U, I was using it in the mid-boost mode, because I do tend to like that mode a bit more. But here's just a real quick sample of the Q9U without the mid-boost on. Microphone D was the microphone that this whole review has been about. This is the Deity VO-7U. And while I was using this, I did have it at 55%, so that analog limiter should have been engaged. Microphone E was the Shure MV7, which currently goes for around $225, but it usually goes for $250. I'm not sure if this is a sale or a permanent change, but around that price. By process of elimination, microphone F was the Samson Q2U. I've seen this microphone go anywhere from $55 to $70, but it is the cheapest microphone in this comparison. Now that we've gone through the comparison and the tests and everything, I'm going to go back and edit this first part of the video, and then come back and give you my opinion. This is bullshit. I'm sick. But I got a lot of products to review coming up and everything, so I cannot get behind. I gotta tough it through and do this review. I don't know. So, apologies, you will probably have to deal with a little bit more vulgar and less enthusiastic Bronson during this review section. Now I'm ready to give you my review of the Deity VO-7U. I do think Deity does a really good job with all of their products. And quite honestly, this one is no exception. I think that this is actually very solid, especially at the price point that it comes in at. This might not be my favorite Deity microphone that they've came out with, but it is a very solid entry, especially into the USB dynamic microphone little universe. There are some solid options out there now, which is funny because not even too long ago, there weren't a ton of options. It's just going to come down to what your budget is, what you need from it, and what sound you like, of course. I'm not going to go on and on about this microphone like I usually do because I'm not sure how much longer I'm going to be able to stand up. Oh, I laugh, but I want to cry. But I think the bottom line is that this does offer really good value for the money that you're paying. I actually like the tone of this microphone quite a bit. But before I give you my grade of the VO-7U, let me go ahead and talk about a couple positives and negatives. Like I mentioned before, I'm not the biggest fan of a lot of boom arms and stuff. Like, I think the one that came with this is fine. But speaking of the boom arm that came with this, man, when I had it attached to my desk and I was like leaning against my desk and just shaking occasionally, man, that thing was like really shaking. It was shaking more than Outkast in the Hey Ya video. But with the actual boom arm, it doesn't really have a way to tighten this down here, so like, it shakes quite a bit. Which isn't really a big deal because it didn't pick up a lot of desk noise. Even when it was shaking, it didn't really get into the microphone at all. So it's not too much of a complaint, just kind of looked silly on camera. One thing that I've been having just today, actually, is that the headphone jack on this mic is sounding a little bit weird. It's not putting out as much volume as it once was, and it has a bit of a crackle occasionally. I don't know what's going on with it. Maybe I'm doing something wrong. I am not feeling well, so maybe I just screwed this up somehow. Don't know how, but maybe. It's possible. But in previous situations, when it comes to the headphone jack, I will say that it was a little bit on the quieter end. It wasn't super low, but it would have been nice to have a little bit more volume. And one thing that I mentioned earlier, the Deity does say, is that the analog limiter kicks in after 50%. And I get why they do that, but I honestly wish that there was a way that I could either have the analog limiter on all the time or not have it on at all. I know that some people are like, well, when I'm gaming or doing something, I get a little excited and I might yell, and it's nice to have a limiter in that situation that's already built in. So I understand for those people why it would be appealing, but I do feel like the analog limiter isn't necessarily allowing the level to clip, but it still distorts a little bit even inside the microphone. Like if I were to get really loud really quick, and this is the limiter and everything, I am definitely not clipping on my meter at all. But you can hear that there's definitely some clipping artifacts in there. So I definitely like the idea of the limiter. I don't think it's perfect. It's definitely workable though. But when it comes to some pros about this microphone, I do love the fact that it's 24-bit at 48 kilohertz. I like that a lot of people are stepping away from the 16-bit at 48 kilohertz. I feel like a lot of places and a lot of companies were just stuck at that for a while, which I understand it's good enough quality, but I just think that, always growing, always making things better is a solid thing when it comes to businesses and competition in business. But I do absolutely love that you have the gain knob and the headphone knob. That's fantastic. USB-C, absolutely welcome. I love it. I do think the windscreen kills a little bit of the tone, but it does help with plosives and air. I do like the little yoke mounting system on the one side. I think it's cool. I love the mute button on this. One thing that I'm not the fondest of, but I'm not going to call it a con or a pro. I don't really care for the lights. They're whatever to me. But one thing that I do like when it comes to the lights is the fact that you do have the ability to turn them off and change the brightness, as well as change through 12 different presets of colors and little wavy things. So if they want to put the lights on, that's fine by me, as long as they give me a way to choose what I want or turn them off. One thing I absolutely do love is that in this mount, you have the option inside to choose between 5/8 threading and 3/8 threading. I think that's really cool. But last, but of course not least, I do think the sound of this microphone is good. But overall, I do think this is a solid entry for it being Deity's first dynamic USB microphone. Actually, I think it's just their first dynamic microphone in general. Just a real quick pause from Sick Bronson. There are a couple things that happened while I was reviewing this microphone that I kind of want to talk about really quick. First thing to note, I'm well aware that this is not how this little tripod that they send is meant to be used. But hey, why not? We'll give it a shot. And you might be asking yourself, hey, I thought you got sent the podcast version. And that's one of the things that I want to talk about, because technically I got sent both kits at this point. And here's why. Earlier in my review section, when I was talking about the headphones kind of sounding weird, starting to have a crackle, I wasn't sure if it was my fault or if it was an issue with the microphone. Turns out it was an issue with the actual headphone jack. When I was done with that review section, a couple hours later, I turned this microphone back on and was about to do a recording, and the headphones just sounded so bizarre. It had like a robotic delay. It was very weird. But before you make any assumptions about anything, let me just talk about a couple things. When I told Deity about the headphones and sent them the sample, I no joke had a new microphone on my doorstep a day and a half later. Alongside that, though, their customer service was super nice. They were very friendly, very accommodating. It's nice to be able to deal with a company that really does care. And coincidentally, I did talk about that earlier in the video. So the microphone that I had that I was testing was actually a pre-production model. And when they send out pre-production models, they aren't a final copy or anything, so maybe there were some things that they worked out, I don't know. But in this scenario, I'm absolutely giving Deity the benefit of the doubt. If this was a majority of companies and this happened, I probably would write that company off. But I just know better in this situation, and I know Deity is a quality company. Since it was a pre-production model, they had great customer service, they gave me a new microphone like immediately. I'm not going to fault them too much. All things considered though, I still really do like this microphone. I think it's a very solid product, and the grade that I give the Deity VO-7U is a B+. And I do think a part of me does bring the grade down slightly just because this market is becoming saturated and it's just yet another entry. But honestly, I will put this microphone up against any other USB dynamic microphone, and I would not be afraid to say it's as good or better than some of the microphones in a similar category. But it's just going to come down to the features that you want and the sound that you like. But I'm going to go ahead and let Sick Bronson finish this video up. But I do think a lot of people could be very happy with this. I would love to see them eventually do a dynamic XLR mic or a dynamic XLR USB mic. That would be cool too. But this definitely does open a lot of possibilities for products that we could see from Deity in the future. So it is cool that they are adding some diversity to their lineup. But I do just want to say thank you once again to Deity for sending this microphone over so that I could review it. I want to say a very big thank you to everyone that's a member of this channel, and another thank you to everyone that is watching this video right now and subscribes. You guys are awesome. But I need to go to bed now, and it's 3 p.m. So, good night. I'll see you audio nerds next time.